Last time we went over major sins, and we read like 40 something sins. I think we didn't get to 50. So actually, and then someone sent me a question and asked me about some obvious major sins we didn't even mention. So how are they not there? So then I realized that, yeah, actually, they're here. They're just not in that particular list. So I have a section here about major sins that has a number of major sins that weren't even in that list. Yani, they weren't in the list because they're right here. So out of not being repetitive, I didn't mention them again. But because of that, just prompted me to repeat them just for the sake of numbering. So here I'm going to share this list of sins with you, major sins. And we'll see how many we have here. So blasphemy is not included here. That is a major sin, though. Blasphemy is a major sin. So we're going to start, though, with murder, fornication and adultery, zina, sodomy. This is not in a sequence of enormity, copulating with the menstruating or postpartum bleeding woman, leaving one's family to fornicate while being able to stop them. Being a pimp, that means bringing this here, what's intended here is bringing customers to the prostitute. Insincerity in the worships, doing it for other than the sake of Allah only. Being conceited about one's worship. Yani, the person is glorifying himself for what he sees from himself with the worship that he does. Feeling safe from the punishment of Allah, that's the one you're asking me about, brother. To continually sin, relying on Allah having mercy upon one. Despairing from the mercy of Allah. This is the opposite of that, which is being hopeless of God's mercy and believing about oneself that he is in the afterlife for sure doomed. And this is thinking ill of God. Yani, thinking ill of God is another name for this sin. Two names for the same sin. Not praying, the obligatory prayer. Combining prayers without an excuse. Purposely praying without wudu, which is blasphemy according to Abu Hanifa. Purposely praying without wudu. Interrupting an obligation without excuse, like breaking your prayer or eating in the middle of the day of Ramadan or the like. Defying the consensus, not necessarily blasphemy to go against the consensus. Like if someone said, I believe Ali was the first caliph, we're not going to say he's a blasphemer for this. But this is against the consensus. It's even against the consensus of the Sahaba. Departing Ahlul Sunnah. That is at least a major sin, at least. So what's more than a major sin? Blasphemy. And maybe these two are the same thing, 15 and 16. Retracting allegiance to the caliph. Harming the parents. High major sin. And it's a reason for you to get punished in the dunya. A reason to get punished in the dunya. Cutting ties with Muslim kin. Without an excuse, of course. Gossip in some cases. In some cases, a small sin. In some cases, a major sin. It's a major sin if the one you're gossiping about or backbiting is a pious person. Also, to gossip about the scholar. And also to severely attack one's honor in the gossip. Severely attack his honor in the gossip. It's a major sin. Defamation, which is to lie about the Muslim. Yani, that's gossip with lying, defamation. Slandering someone's lineage, such as to call him a bastard. Insulting some of the companions. Not all of them. Insulting all of them is blasphemy. Insulting pious ones is a major sin. Insulting a Muslim is a major sin. Sibabul Muslimi fusuq. Insulting the Muslim is a major sin. That's a hadith. Lying on God and his messenger, that's a major sin if it doesn't reach the level of blasphemy. Like if someone says, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said such and such, and the Prophet didn't say that, that's a major sin. Legalizing what God and his messenger did not legalize is blasphemy, or illegalizing, and then saying that God said so, or his messenger said so. That's blasphemy. For insulting a Muslim, would it have to be offensive to that Muslim for it to be sinful? I haven't heard or asked about it. So let a person avoid that, because so many things in our religion depend on merely the name of the issue. So if you do what that issue, what that name applies to, then you're going to fall into the thing or do the thing. So good idea to not joke with the other Muslim insulting him if it doesn't bother him. Said cussing the companions. Uh, so I'm using the word insult, insulting the companions. Insulting all of them is blasphemy. Insulting pious ones is major sin. So if it is one or two for bad actions, no, I don't want to go into that. Barakallahu feek. Lying about what one saw in his dream, major sin. That's what Sheikh said in the Bughya. Such as to say, I saw the messenger of Allah in my dream and he told me this and that. Some people use this to get money from others or even to marry their daughters. Lying for comedy or for comedic purposes. That's clear. Perjury, that means swearing under oath, or lying while you swear to God. Lying while swearing to God, or lying while swearing. Staining oneself or clothing with urine. Sorcery, magic, witchcraft. Stealing. Extortion, that means taking others' stuff by force. Stealing here means taking it stealthily. Sneaking. Highway robbery, meaning ambushing and waylaying. Those ones who do that, they do battle with the caliph's forces. Yani, they fight the sheriff. These guys, they do battle with the sheriff. So they rob the caravans that come past. They ambush the caravans, and the caliph, part of his duties is to keep these people at bay. So sometimes they might do battle with the sheriff. The sheriff's going to be under the caliph. Those are Muslims, by the way. SubhanAllah. Misappropriating war spoils. That means taking the spoils before they are distributed properly. It's a major sin, even if it's just a handkerchief. Bribery, like to pay the judge to pay the judge to rule wrongly, to rule unjustly, or similar to that. Not only a judge, but it's not haram to bribe someone to get your right. It's not haram to bribe someone to get your right. If there's no other way, that is. If there's no other way. Withholding zakat, that means one is able. Cheating while selling by measurement. Measurement means weight, volume, length, count. All those are different measurements. Spending money sinfully, broad rule, major sin. So sinfully doesn't mean invalidly. It's broader. Tax collection, usury and interest, consuming the orphan's money. He knows the orphan. The yatim, the prepubescent child whose father died, is what's meant here. Leaving a will to deprive some of one's children. Preventing the needy from one's excess water. Excess water like he has a stream. Excess water does not include the water that he has in containers that he took home, for example. Preventing someone from using his stud with details. That means someone has female animals, and you have a male, a stud, one that mates with the females. So, under rules, you're obligated to lend your stud. Altering the landmarks that signify the amount of one's property. So, the marker between your property and your neighbor's property, you pushed it closer to your neighbor's side. Yeah, to expand your own. That's haram. Beating a Muslim unjustly. Yeah, beating here means hitting. Darb. And fighting a Muslim unjustly. Fighting is qital. And terrorizing a Muslim, like pulling a knife out on him to scare him. Not like you're training, though. That's not terrorizing the person when you're training together. Striving to unjustly harm a Muslim by way of the ruler, judge, or the like. And calling the police on the Muslim, calling the judge on the Muslim, calling the social services on the Muslim, etc., like this, so that they will harm him unjustly. So they'll harm him unjustly. What you could do, like for example, a woman might take a man to the court for child support, but because she wasn't getting any, there was no other way to get it. Not that he was giving it to her, but she wanted to punish him, and she knew she could. So then she called. She opened the case, and then take only what he's obligated to pay, not more. If they gave her more than what he's obligated to pay, she gives it back to him until puberty. But subhanAllah, be mindful here. This is a major sin that sometimes some of the Muslims fall into. Be careful before you put those kuffar into your business, to your family affairs and other things. Instigating trouble between Muslims. Yeah, going back and forth between them to make them fight or the like. Giving religious answers without knowledge. You'll be damned for that. This is one of the sins that will result in you being cursed. Consuming unslaughtered meat, swine, and meat that one is doubtful about whether it was slaughtered or not. Drinking wine. Wailing over the dead while able to refrain. Ripping off one's clothing or pulling out one's hair upon someone's death while able to refrain. Perverting the name of Allah, like saying Allah or Allah or Allah without the hat at the end. I think a lot of Americans say Allah, say the hat. Allah. A lot of Arabs say Allah. They don't say the alif or the hat. You said, sorry to cut me off. Can I answer your question later? You said specifically Muslim, right? I don't know what you're asking me. If you want, repeat your question, please. You said, Sheikh said knowingly it would be a major sin. What's that? Perverting the name of Allah knowingly is a major sin? Not a major sin without knowing. Barakallahu feek. I never heard about that before. Barakallahu feek. Let me just highlight this one here so I can come back to it. Sheikh Nabil said so. Barakallahu feek. Strolling arrogantly. That's clear. Wearing one's clothing below his ankles arrogantly. To rule or judge by other than God's law. Withholding testimony with details. Refusing to witness. Imitating the opposite gender. Like for a man to wear silk clothing without an excuse, or golden jewelry, or women's clothing like high heels, or earrings, even one. Or for a woman to wear men's shoes, or a man's hat, or the like. And it's not only the clothing, imitating them in their behaviors also. Imitating the blasphemer. Now, I don't have here imitating the major sinner, so I don't know what's the judgment of that. Imitating the major sinner. We'll ask inshallah. If we get it confirmed, we'll put it here in the list. Committing small sins until they outnumber one's good deeds. That itself is one major sin. A person has so many small sins. Once they outnumber his good deeds, then he got a major sin. He committed a major sin. Committing major sins within the haram. Uh, Interesting. It's already a major sin. Yani, implies it's going to be more. Allah knows though. Need to ask. Comparing one's wife to his unmarriageable relative, his ineligible women, his unmarriageable relative, to tell her that he will not have intercourse with her. Yani, as a way of telling her that he won't have intercourse with her. So he says to her, "You are to me like my mother," or "You are to me like the back of my mother," or "You are to me like my sister," or "My sister's hand," or anything like that. Accusing a Muslim of fornication without proper evidence, which is the four witnesses. Fleeing the battlefield with details. Turning back from the hijrah when it was obligatory to migrate, which is now abrogated. The Sheikh said in the Bughya, a limit to the number of major sins is not confirmed in any hadith. Abdul Razzaq narrated in his tafsir through Ma'mar, through Ibn Tawus, through his father, that it was said to Ibn Abbas, how many major sins are there? Are they 7 in number? He answered, they are closer to 70. So that's the update there. Barakallahu fikum. All right, getting back to the lucid word.